morning I will be reading from the Gospel of Mark, in the 10th chapter, starting at verse 2 through 16. Now some Pharisees came to test him, and they asked, "Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife?" And he answered them, "What did Moses command you?" And they said, "Moses allowed a man to write a certificate of dismissal to divorce her." But Jesus said to them, "Because of your hardness of heart, he wrote this commandment for you. But from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they no longer are two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate." Then in the house the disciples had asked him again about this matter. And he said to them, "Whoever divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery against her. And if she divorces her husband and marries another, she commits adultery." Now people were bringing little children to them, in order that he might touch them. And the disciples spoke sternly to them. But when Jesus saw this, he was indignant, and he said to them, "Let the little children come to me, and do not stop them. For it is to such as these that the kingdom of God belongs. Truly I tell you, whoever does not receive the kingdom of God as a little child will never enter it." And he took them up in his arms. He laid his hands on them, and he blessed them. These are the words of God for the people of God, and we say,
Thanks be to God.
You know, this morning, in the reading from Mark, he starts off with a pretty sticky subject brought on by the Pharisees, and the subject of divorce. I know many of you here have been affected in one way or another by divorce. I myself was married once before and divorced. And Jesus kind of snapped back at those trying to trick him about the subject. And he asked them, "What did Moses command you?" He didn't say, "What did God command you?" He said, "What did Moses say?" Write the woman a certificate. Write the woman a certificate. What about the man? What about the man? Where's his certificate? If the man is displeased with the woman, what do we do then? Why, we just get us another. That's that simple. I mean, if you're not happy with her, give her a certificate of divorce and go find yourself another one. That's all you got to do. Just keep getting another one until we find the right one, I guess. Of course, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And that's not what God had said. That's what Moses said. God created man and woman to live together to help each other. In Genesis 2, verses 23 and 24, Adam said this, that she is the bone of my bone, the flesh of my flesh. And therefore, a man will leave his mother and father and cling to his wife, and they will become one flesh. And they become husband and wife without all the hoopla, and they begin to start a new life together, a new family. God created man and woman for procreation, not recreation. Procreation. But that's not how it seems nowadays. But as one or the other, they become abusive, violent, then there should be no staying together. Should not be. We're not meant to be that way. And there is nothing about a certificate, but it was created to give the woman some kind of sense of freedom. Otherwise, she would be shunned by the community. She would be shunned. And today, it seems as though marriage is some kind of form of making living together legal. Did you know that the institution of marriage did not start till the mid-1500s? did not start with Genesis, the formal institution of marriage. And it began, dare I say, with the Catholic Church. Because at that time, basically, it was the only church around, the Catholic Church. Before that time, it was a matter of just making a commitment that they would stay together for the rest of their lives. A commitment that was not and should not be taken lightly. Sometimes it was a matter of just jumping over a broomstick or swapping the robes. It was that simple. The weddings. They were that simple. And through such a commitment and a union between a man and a woman, a new family starts. Children will soon arrive. And then the whole process starts all over again. And of course, before children can reach the age of leaving home, they have to be taught. People, you know this. One, the reason they have children, no children have to be taught. And for the first 2 years of their lives, we teach them how to walk, and we teach them how to talk. Because eventually, especially most of you mothers know that when you're lugging around a baby, it starts off like this. And then it starts off like this, and then pretty soon it's like this, and you're lugging these kids around. So you want them to walk, to be able to take care of themselves a little bit. And then, of course, when they get sick, and they're crying, or they're hungry or something, we need them to communicate, to understand what's wrong with them, because sometimes babies just drive you crazy. What's wrong with you, child? And so we teach them how to talk so we can better communicate. And we do that in the first 2 years of their lives, and we try to get that pretty well set. And then for the next 16 years of their lives, we're telling them to sit down and shut up. That's what we do. Tell them to sit down and shut up. And it is the children that catches the focus of Jesus this morning as the disciples are trying to quiet down some children and prevent them from coming to see Jesus. And Mark tells us that people were bringing their children to Jesus and hoping that they would touch them and bless them. That was the job of a rabbi. People would bring their children to the rabbis for them to touch and a blessing upon their lives. What were the disciples thinking anyway when they tried to block kids from coming to Jesus? I was wondering, did they feel that they were a threat to Jesus like the Pharisees were? Or did the disciples figure they're just a nuisance? You know, and Jesus needed some rest. Or did they feel that the children were not important to Jesus? Or maybe, better yet, they did not belong to the kingdom of God yet. Whatever the cause that made the disciples do what they did, it did not set well with Jesus. It didn't set well. And Jesus, his opinion about children was totally different from that of the disciples. And over the centuries and up until today, it seems like Christians have adopted that same attitude that the disciples had about children.